Day one of training camp has come and gone, folks. That means football is right now in our backyard. We're in the middle of it, and certainly excited about it. And yeah, it was. I don't know that it was an eventful day, but it was the first chance we got to talk to guys, Kevin Stefanski, even for quite some time, and it was a thrilling day to be out in the sweltering heat of Cleveland, Ohio, getting some football and watching some football out in Berea. So Spencer
Germ, the excitement in your voice is something that just warms my heart, man. Let's go.
Do I sound excited? Because I'm a little tired, but I'm trying to. I am trying to actually convey that it was an exciting day to be out in Berea. I just it's been a long one, and it's going to only be longer the next 2 days because I got to be up at 4:30 in the morning the next 2 days. So that'll be fun. But no, listen, it was nice to have something tangible to talk about because that last couple weeks of the summer before football really starts revving up and we're doing like find 3 players that are going to be poised for a breakout year. And like, we're doing like those same regurgitated stories we do every year. And we just like find new players each time and they have like the best takes on it. I was getting tired of that. So now we have actual stuff to talk about, which is good. I do want to encourage you, as always, to please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Anthony Moeglin, alongside myself, Spencer German. We'll be doing this throughout the season, obviously. We're going to try to recap as many days of training camp together as we can, and certainly a lot more content to come. So if you're following the Browns, maybe you're a big Shedeur Sanders fan who is, transplanting to be a Browns fan from Colorado or whatever, you're welcome. Welcome to the channel. Hit subscribe. We appreciate the follow. Well, and I do think, honestly, Shedeur Sanders and the quarterbacks is probably the natural place to start, Megs. We're not going to bury the lead here. I know what people want to talk about. I know what people want to hear. And my big takeaway, I think, just in general from this room, Megs, and this competition, is that not much has changed since minicamp, and not much has changed in the way of how they view this quarterback room right now, where 7-on-7s, it was Flacco first, Pickett second, Dillon third, Shedeur fourth. When you got deeper into practice, they split the fields. They did some 7. Well, I take that back. In the early portion of practice, where it was just like quarterbacks throwing the football to receivers and stuff, that's where Flacco went first. 7-on-7s, they split the field. They split the quarterbacks into 2 different groups, and Flacco took the first reps with the ones with Pickett behind him, and then the rookies were together on the other field, and Dillon went ahead of Shedeur Sanders, obviously. And then once you got to 11-on-11s, it was the exact same thing we saw in minicamp, where Joe Flacco, might as well still just been on vacation and kicking his feet up with a little umbrella drink, because he was just sitting there as a spectator watching. And it was Pickett getting the first rush with the 1s, Dillon Gabriel getting the reps with the 2s, Shedeur Sanders getting the reps with the 3s. And so that same sort of, the way the reps were handled back in the spring seemed to still be the way that they're being handled right now. And so, yeah, camp sort of starts with a very familiar, a very familiar standpoint in perspective on these quarterbacks right now, at least how the Browns feel about them, I would say.
Yeah, I think before our show here, you called it right. I think you said Joe had a first-round bye today, which was a very funny way to describe it. And you kind of talked about this, and they've been very upfront about these first couple of days of training camp being kind of the NFL calls it a ramp-up period, and it's now like a part of every team has to have these types of days instead of just getting in and going right into right into real workouts. You have to have that period where everyone's in just shirts and jerseys and shorts today, and then you'll see in a couple days they'll do that for a couple days, and then you'll see them throw the uppers on. They'll
shoulder pads will start, I think, on Saturday.
Yeah,
and then pads start next week.
Yeah, and then you'll start seeing them start to tackle. So it is this nice little ramp up period, and it's funny how you described it. Like, hey, we know what the 40-year-old Joe Flacco has in the in the tank. We're going to give the other reps to everybody else. And truthfully, from my perspective, so for our fans at home, as you can see, we're not in the same place. Spence is on site. I'm seeing stuff just like you. I'm kind of on the road here, so you're seeing. I'm seeing everything through the lens of social media. So they do a fair job. I think of giving every quarterback at least a clip. So you saw one from everybody today. You saw Joe Flacco hitting Mike Woods on a nice outcut, and Mike Woods making a diving catch. And you saw Kenny Pickett hitting a streaking Jerry Jeudy across the field on what looked to be a perfect ball off of play action.
Yeah.
You saw Dylan Gabriel in a play that, as you could see, I was pulling it up here. I accidentally put it on the screen, but you saw Dylan Gabriel have really what you call the play of the day on a nice big touchdown. And then you saw Shador have a really nice throw on like a comeback route where he kind of fitted over the outstretched hand of one of the defenders. So you saw all these guys, doing some good things. Critical to remember. You're going to see some stuff on social, like the ESPN Cleveland's doing their thing that blew up last time of the quarterback tracking, which I think is very funny, but just contextually, like, hey, this isn't quite real football yet, and these guys are still working their way into everything.
Well, the quarterback tracking is going to happen, especially
which is funny. Like,
I understand it more this time of year because it's now you're getting ready for the season. You are going to measure the quarterbacks more by these things. I get all that. It's interesting because Kevin Stefanski was asked about the timeline on picking a quarterback, and in classic Kevin Stefanski fashion, like he wasn't going to give anything away, but he did sort of at the end. Like there was 2 questions in a row that he was kind of asked about it, and he ended up sort of ending his explanation by saying, ultimately, we love to make decisions sooner than later. So, he talked a lot about, like, I have a plan that's in pencil in terms of day-to-day, how they're handling things. They're going to try to gather as much information as possible. And then, the idea is they hopefully figure this out sooner rather than later. But I think, listen, frankly, I think they have a sense of where this thing's going to go. And I've been pretty candid about the fact that it feels to me like it's more of it's 2 different races going on at once. It's not like they call it an open petition for all 4 guys, but it feels more like Joe and Kenny are competing for the starting job, and Shador and Dylan are competing for the backup job, and who's going to win each one respectively. I think in some respects, I think they've put more on Dylan's plate than they have Shador. Shador's done a lot more like basic stuff. Easy reads, easy throws. The touchdown pass that Dylan threw today was a more conceptual and like a higher level play. It was basically like this fake boot left with levels, stop, look back the other way, and throw to somebody, cutting towards the far sideline. It's a very long throw, and so like they've thrown I think a little bit more at Dylan than they have Shador Sanders, and so I just think like what we talked about back in the spring of, Shador and Dylan to some degree, like have their work cut out for them in terms of like working their way at the depth chart. That stands to be true. They've now signaled in multiple areas that like what this pecking order sort of is. And so I do think they have an understanding like which way it's going to go, at least at this juncture. And so making that decision, as Kevin said, like sooner rather than later, I think will become easier as this goes on, because I think they already kind of know how they want it to go. I've said it too, like, I don't know, is it a fair competition? If like that question comes up a lot, I don't want to say it's like rigged a certain way, but I do think that they will set this up where, they leave doubt about, hey, well, it's 4 quarterbacks. We only had so many reps to go around. We just didn't see enough of Shador, or we just didn't see enough of Dylan, right? Like they'll leave some things, some stones unturned there. Where it's like, okay, like there's more, but because I just don't think they want these rookies to play. So it's not rigged, right, but it's like they're sort of stacking the deck in their favor for the outcome that they think makes the most sense, which is one of those veterans starting.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and I've banged the same drum almost, right along with you, where I very clearly think it's going to be, I think me and you see it. I think similarly, like I think it's going to be Joe, honestly, but a lot of people are saying that Kenny's going to have a really good shot at it. I just, in my opinion, don't know how you can throw him out there for the fan base, for the other players on the team. But who knows? What if he does light it up in camp, and he finds that, hey, out of this play action system, this Kevin Stefanski style offense, that he really thrives in it. And that's something that I wanted to bring up too, Spence, was like, it was so refreshing all day long. Every clip I saw, everything, every play started under center, and every big play was off of play action, right? And like, it was so good to see, like, this is what these Kevin Stefanski teams, when they're rolling, this is what they're doing. They're running the football down the hill, right into your mouth, and then they're throwing play action off of it. And it's not only what Kevin Stefanski does well, but guess what? It's what Kyle Shanahan does well. It's what Kevin O'Connor does well in Minnesota. It's what Sean McVay does well. Like, yes, they have that flashiness to them, but all of those offenses are built by the run game. And that's how, when you're rolling and your run game's going downhill, it's damn near impossible to stop, because the game shortens down, you tire your defense out, and then you hit these big shots over the top. And that's how I wrote about this yesterday over on our site. Like, this offense is very process oriented, where it can be a guy like, guess who was successful in it? Brock Purdy. Very similar. Like, you don't need to have the best arm, and you don't need to be Patrick Mahomes to find success in this. You just need to be very quick with your decision making and very accurate with where you're throwing the football. And I think they got a couple guys that are going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Bitonio called it like an offensive lineman's dream, that they're getting back to this. Like, you can see those concepts back out there. I
called it a quarterback's dream, man, because it is. You don't have to be Superman to be successful in it.
I think, the argument for this team being better than Vegas, where you are right now, is giving them credit for. Other people outside of outside of Cleveland are giving them credit for, is that, well, hey, they're going back to a system that works. They're going back to a system that, should produce, better results. And we know what it looks like with Kevin Stefanski's offense. So all that is definitely true. We saw a lot of that on day one. And I will say this, like, I want to be as fair as possible as you go through this evaluation process, because we have our own personal opinions on, these quarterbacks and who should start and who shouldn't. And I don't know that, like, I think Kenny Pickett should start week 1, but I do think today, in the context of like what we saw, and how many reps they got, I think Kenny had the best day, frankly. Like, he completed most of his passes. He, in 11 on 11s, he had the really nice ball to Jerry Jeudy over the middle that you mentioned on like a dig route. So he finally looked like a steady, confident quarterback, was one of the more consistent ones on the day. I thought Dylan had one of his better days, running with the twos mostly. In the 7-on-7 stuff, him and Luke Floria, your boy Luke Floria, who you said was going to make the 3-man roster. He had a couple of nice catches where those two kind of were on the same page, and there were some nice throws there from Dylan. And of course, the big touchdown pass that I mentioned as well. So I think he had a good day. He did have a bad pass, like very high to Deontay Johnson, that it just didn't look like he really even saw where he was, which that could be a problem for him. Like, these guys are going to tower over him in front of him. He's going to have to sort of, work around that to the best of his ability. But, I think they both had really good days. I think Flacco, given the limited reps he took, had a good day. I actually think today was Shador's worst day we've seen since he's put on a uniform and been out on the field and played. And I'm not trying to, rile people up in the YouTube comment section here or anything. I think that's just factually true. He had one really nice throw, a very layered throw in 7-on-7 work. And then after that, it was a lot of just like, he just didn't seem like he was seeing the field right. Getting the ball out late in certain spots. Like he over the middle, he had a throw that would have got one of his receivers kind of like absolutely blown up on a play.
Hospital ball.
Yeah. If pads were on. So I'm trying to keep it 100 here. I'm trying to be like honest about this as I evaluate these guys. And I don't think today was Shedeur Sanders' best day, but it's day one. Like, he has plenty of room to bounce back. And I think Pickett, in the vein of the team trying to maybe get him, like maybe they want him to be the starter and sort of take the opportunity here and run with it. I thought he had a strong day, and I think Gabriel had a strong day.
Yeah, I think it's always very it's always hard. And this isn't me making excuses, because someday, like you said, Kenny Pickett had a really nice day today. Dylan had a nice day today. But it's so different, man, when you go from all summer long, working out, I'm throwing my routes, I'm dropping back in my cutoff, or I got my shirt off with my boys, like doing all this stuff. And then boom, that helmet's on, and now guys are rushing at you. And it is a totally different world, right? And there's no, you talk about experience being a big thing. Like Kenny's done this now 4 years. This is his 5th offseason, or maybe his 4th. Is it his 4th or his 5th, right? This is 5th year.
No, this is Kenny's 4th year.
4th year. Okay, so he's going in his 4th training camp, a little bit more experience there. But you need to see what's now important is as you get into day 2 and to day 3, it's like, okay, from a Shedeur perspective, how do you get better? How did you respond to your worst day, so far? And for Dylan and Kenny, like, how did you respond to a nice day, right? That's equally important to get better from. We always talked about it, like, good play, bad play, next play. Like, that's something you could live your life on, because it's like, hey, if it was a good day, fine. If it was a bad day, fine. It's in the past. Keep going forward. And it's the same thing, for these guys. And that's the interesting part.
As we think about the past for all these quarterbacks too, by the way, like, I still think, again, Flacco, unless him not taking reps is them saying, like, we don't really want him to win the job and they're just not going to give him those opportunities.
No way.
That could happen too. Like, they could just kind of like play coy with it and be like, yeah, we just think he's advanced. But really, it's like, we didn't see enough of him. When it's all said and done, they might be like, yeah, we didn't see enough of Joe Flacco, even though they didn't give him the reps. I don't think that's what they're doing here. To me, it feels more like they just, they're not worried about Joe Flacco in this offense right now. They'll give him more reps later on. And the guys who are new to this offense are getting sort of the first chance to go out there and play. But, yeah, man, like the one way Flacco, levels the playing field, if you will, or lets others catch up to him, is if the turnovers are just too much. Like that's the one part of his game that we know they won't stand for, because the thing that killed them last year was the fact that they turned the ball over way too much. And conversely, like, they weren't creating enough turnovers on defense. And so they have to cut down on that stuff. So that's the thing that, I'm fascinated to see joint practices and all that. Like, how does Flacco look versus Pickett? Because if he's throwing a lot of interceptions against a really good defense against the Eagles per se, how does that sort of set things up moving forward? Because they will use those joint practices as some of the biggest evaluation tools for these guys moving forward. So, but yeah, we can talk more about that at another time. I do want to sort of move ahead here, because we know the Quinshon Judkins stuff has been a big topic of conversation. Today was the first day that you had a chance to hear from Kevin Stefanski on the matter. And in classic Kevin Stefanski fashion, he was asked on multiple occasions to just kind of talk about the situation, and politely declined. His go-to line in this instance, he changed it up on me. I thought for sure it was going to be, we're going to let the legal process play out. But it was more so him saying that they were gathering information and that they have no further comment time. We are expected to talk to Andrew Berry on Thursday, and so I'm sure he'll get peppered with some of those questions as well. What I do find interesting, though, is like Kevin was asked even more about the education piece. Like, how are you telling these guys to behave, and are they getting the message? And his first answer on that was basically like, yeah, we take this very seriously. I think some people would debate that. But and how the league mandates like certain places where they educate. And we know for a fact, like, these coaches sit down before they go to summer vacation and say, be careful. People are trying to get you caught in the wrong situation. Like, don't fall for it. All these different things. But it's now 2 years in a row where you have a rookie in this situation. And so I even asked Kevin, like, is the message getting through? Are you worried that it's not getting through? Because he talks so much about like making sure the messaging doesn't get stale, and the fact that it is 2 straight years now where one of the members of your rookie class is,
doing the same thing.
Yeah, having the same thing happen to them. I do think there is some concern there, and I do think you have to kind of look in the mirror and wonder, are what we trying to preach and teach these guys, is it resonating? Like that, I think that's a valid question from anybody on the outside looking in for somebody like Kevin or somebody like Andrew.
What a hell of a concept, though, right? Like, imagine, for the folks who are listening to our show, like, imagine, not in that same context, but imagine your boss being responsible for the way you as an adult behave outside of the workplace. It's just a wild concept, but that's the kind of the way it goes in the NFL world. And especially with these young guys, man, like, the whole situation, we've said it, and I'll continue to say it, like it's horrible for everybody involved. And you hope that, his girlfriend or friend, whatever they are, that she's okay. And like, that's first and foremost, but like also too, like, you should never ever get into that situation. I don't care who or what is said or whatever the deal is. Like, that should never happen. Like, regardless of what my coach says, regardless of what anybody in my life says, that just shouldn't be. That should be the principle you live by. And it's like that's the really tough part about the whole thing is like, like you said, Kev, is the messaging getting through? And clearly, it may not be for some of these young rookies who are getting their first opportunity to be professionals, and it's not resonating. That's the hard part. And it feels like it's just a Browns problem because it's not many other around the league that have been doing this.
Well, it's really not just a Browns problem though, to be honest. Like, you can look up and find out like how many other teams have dealt with legal situations, guys getting arrested. The Browns are up there. I know there was an article put out by Yahoo, I want to say maybe last offseason, that like tracked like since 2000 the number of arrests the team has had. The Browns are like top 6, I think they were. So like they're up there, but it's not like this is a league wide thing. And when it happens in Cleveland, especially when it happens back to back years to somebody from your rookie class, it's easy in a microscope to be like, well, the Browns have all these issues, and I get that. So it's not that it's necessarily abnormal for. It's kind of par for the course of the NFL. Like, guys get in trouble, and I'm not expecting teams to build like just an entire roster of choir boys either. But I do have to sit there and wonder, like, yes, there's an education piece. We know that. But if this is now a trend, why is it a trend? What isn't getting through to these guys? Why is it happening? And those are the questions that they have to ask themselves. And so we'll see what Angel Berry has to say about it as well. But also, like with this situation, what's also so fascinating about it is he's not signed right now, which like that. Because somebody did ask, like, how is this different from the Mike Hall situation? And the biggest difference, of course, is like Mike Hall was signed. He was, and like his situation happened in training while training camp was going on, not before. And so they kind of let him keep practicing in the meantime, right? But with Quinshawn, it's like, well, he wasn't going to show up anyway because he doesn't even have a contract signed. Why would he show up? And so it's kind of double. It's a weird situation because he's unsigned. And he's dealing with this legal situation while all his other second round mates get guaranteed money. He's just kind of sitting there waiting. And so I don't know when we're going to see him, frankly. Like, he might not be in until the end of camp if this thing takes multiple weeks to sort out. And then that puts him behind the 8 ball a little bit in terms of like getting ready for the season. So it's wild, man, because this was a player that we were all sitting here like, hey, he's going to contribute day one. Reason for optimism, like you got this great new back that can run behind this offensive line. They're going back to Stefanski's scheme, all that. And it kind of goes up in smoke if he gets to camp late, if he starts late, if he's not necessarily football ready, and then he's got to sit maybe several weeks because of a potential suspension. So yeah, like this is not an ideal way for the Browns to be starting camp with this sort of dark cloud looming overhead. And I don't know what there's no end in sight for me. I don't know when it is.
Right. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but just from what I saw today, it sounded like, at least from Kevin's perspective, that they were feeling like they were going to get some kind of answers, like even as early as this week. Did you get that feel? I thought I saw a quote from Kevin saying, yeah, we should know a little bit more by the end of the week. And it was in reference to maybe signing and bringing more people in the running back room. Did I make that up or no?
I don't know that he made it sound like they were going to get information
urgent
or
soonly.
not. He kind of made it. He kept it very open ended.
Yeah.
Like he kind of just punted to, you can talk to Andrew about it more tomorrow, and then he started getting asked more specifically just about like how they address these things with players. Mm-hmm. And, I think he tried to sort of navigate the questions like he always does without giving them a lot away. So I didn't pick up on that. And that's kind of getting at, is like, I don't know where this all comes to a head and they get it resolved. because he's got to sign his contract still, and he's not going to sign his contract probably until the Browns know what he's facing, because, what type of money are they going to commit to him with this kind of looming overhead? Are they going to add some language in the contract now? All those things kind of come to the forefront here as they sort this thing out.
Yeah, and it feels like it's an unprecedented scenario too, right? Where this exact scenario probably has never happened, where getting into trouble before you even sign your first contract. So it'll be interesting to see truly how it shakes, and what the Browns do. But ultimately, from a football perspective, like, you hit the nail right on the head. Just like continues to be super disappointing. Like, you think back to the OTA clips of him, making nice cuts and looking explosive and being that downhill back, and everyone was so excited for it. And now it's like, I mean, shit, do you even, are we ever going to even see that? It's just another one of those things that Browns fans everywhere are having to deal with again.
Yeah, it is disappointing because, like I said, I think Quinshon was one of the main reasons.
He's been one of both of our favorites. I mean, we both follow Ohio State football very, very closely, and you and I talk multiple times a week about everything football. And it was, for both of us, it was like, yeah, Quinshon Judkins is next up and would be great in Cleveland. We finally have him, and of course this stuff happens.
If you were trying to talk yourself into this team being better than people think, I think Quinshon was like your alpha and the offensive line was like the omega, right? Like, it was like, oh, those two things kind of flow off, like function off of each other. Who knows what can happen? And now it kind of takes a little bit of some of the wind out of the sails here, I think, as training camp begins, because he's not there, and this is just kind of looming overhead.
Spence, you want to go one further? Like, I was kind of writing a story the other day about the Mason Graham trade, the trade back from 2, and part of that was, you get a first rounder next year. The other part of that was you got the 36 overall pick, and you use that to get Quinshon Judkins instead of having Travis Hunter, and now you're like, are we even going to get Quinshon Judkins? And it's like, everything that you did, every decision you made, like, that's such a high leverage pick. And it was a pick you got because you fell back from 2 to 5. And it's like, if that doesn't prove out, like, as you continue to evaluate even just that decision, this is part of it now. This is all part of it. And it just is like, golly, like, only in Cleveland, man, only in Cleveland.
Yeah. And it's made even tougher by the fact that there were no red flags for Quinshon, and yet here we did. So we'll get more on that from Andrew, and we'll continue to talk about it. But in the meantime, despite how some might think about the Browns outside of Cleveland, Myles Garrett is setting the expectations very high. What I find, and well, here, I'll read you the comments first, and then we'll talk about this, because, he was asked point blank, what his expectations are, being one of the best players in this league, coming off of the season last year, getting the big contract extension. And he flat out said, quote, I mean, I expect to get to the Super Bowl. That's our expectation every year. I expect to run back the defensive player of the year. So keeping both those things in mind, I have to be the very best player I can be every single day, whether we're practicing or playing. As soon as I step in the building, I have to be the best version of myself and the best leader I could possibly be. Number of things to kind of get to with those comments, but it's not that these comments are shocking by any stretch for Myles. He starts pretty much every year saying, like, the goal is always the Super Bowl. And you would expect a player of his caliber to say those things. But what I found interesting about it is, like, given what we know, what he said this offseason, we know what he said about this team this offseason. And so I found it a little bit, what's the right word? Like, I just found it a little, I don't know if disingenuous is the right word, but it was weird hearing a guy that, like, not so many months ago was saying this team's not even close to the Super Bowl, then turn around and be like, hey, the Super Bowl. Like, it just felt very, I guess what I'd say is, like, it felt very robotic. Like, how many guys around the league are saying, hey, we got to go win a Super Bowl, right? That's everybody's goal. But hearing him after we also heard him say, yeah, this team basically ain't shit several months ago, it's like, okay. It just feels like he's like there's somebody puppeteering him, right? Like, and it's called, maybe it's Maybe it's the Benjamin, and maybe it's the Benjamins in his pocket that are like,
I was
hey,
going to say for $40 million.
Like,
yeah, like
he's being paid to say these things. Is kind of what I'm getting at, I guess.
Yeah, I mean
he's
hard.
He's like a spokesperson for the team, right? He's like, hey, show up to training camp and tell everybody that you're chasing a Super Bowl and we'll be happy. And he's like, okay, and he does it because he's getting paid very handsomely to do so. But it's I don't know. It knowing what he said back then about the team to then come here and be like, yeah, Super Bowl. I don't know that there's a lot. I think in previous years that would have got fans like jazzed up. They would be like, hell yeah, I love that Myles is saying this stuff. But I think understanding the context of the situation around Myles and everything that transpired this offseason, I'm guessing some fans just kind of like looked at those comments and either rolled their eyes or just like moved on to the next thing and said like, okay, whatever.
So did you see, this is the same conversation. Did you see what Tua said today about Tyreek Hill?
No, I did not see his comments.
Okay. So if I'm going to paraphrase, I don't know the direct quote, but basically he was asked like, how has Tyreek been, kind of accepted back into the locker room, or like, what's the kind of the relationship been since Tyreek said something very similar. Basically after the end of the season, he tweeted, "I'm out" with the peace sign.
Yeah.
And Tua basically was like, yeah, it's a work in progress. And he followed up on it and was like, you don't just say that type of stuff and then get away with a "I'm sorry, bro," and move right on. Like literally it was like, oh my God, like, okay, that came from not direct verbatim, but something to that effect came out of Tua's mouth. And you're like, yeah, you're dead right. Like, yeah, just because these guys are superstars, like, you have to kind of stand behind your word. Now, I will say that like one of the concerns that I had, and maybe not so much a concern that is kind of validated by anything Myles has ever done, but like, hey, what is his response like after he gets paid that boatload of money? The Browns still don't have the most competitive roster in the NFL. Like, what's his approach to the season was always kind of in the back of my mind. And from the looks of it, he looks lean, he looks strong, he looks like he like put in the work this offseason, and he also like sounds like he cares and sounds like he's going to do everything in his power to try and win. And I even thought from his comments too about, hey, I need to be the best version of myself every day I walk into this facility. Like, that's something that we've ever really heard him say before, So I took that as well as what you took as well. But like, I thought I did grab a couple positives from what he had to say.
But even the leadership comment thing, I think falls on deaf ears to it.
Yeah.
I think people hear that and they're like, Myles, you're in year 9.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to be like the raw leader that people think you should be, because like, so those two comments are fascinating to me because we know what's been said since Myles signed. It's a lot of like Denzel Ward being like, nah, man, we're happy to have him back, and like water under the bridge, and nobody seems to care. And that's all fine and good. But at the same time, like, he still said what he said about this roster. And I don't know that you can just like turn around because it's training camp and it's a new year and you're excited, and all of a sudden be like, hey, Super Bowl, that's still the goal. I mean, again, everybody's going to say it. You're short. If you don't want to hear a player say anything else but that. But nobody, I think, is buying into that. And I like, maybe that bridge has been rebuilt with his teammates, but I don't know that it's been rebuilt with the fan base, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think I think it's very valid, kind of what you bring to the table, and it's fascinating. It's interesting to hear, kind of. It was what you said about Tyreek, or what Tua said about Tyreek, is something that you've never really heard a professional say about like a teammate.
Yeah, it's very honest. I mean, it's very honest.
Super honest.
Here's the other thing I'll say: the Tua is viewed, at least in Miami, he might not be one, but he's viewed as kind of like their guy. Like, he's their franchise quarterback. The Browns don't have that right now. And so it kind of takes having somebody who can say something like that to sort of balance out someone who's, you know what I mean? Like, the Browns don't have somebody who can do that right now. So if there are people who feel like what Myles said wasn't really, the best,
what are you going to say? Yeah.
Right. Like, there's nobody who can really counter Myles and be like, hey, we're still working through this or whatever, because he did say we suck,
It's the be who you can afford to be, or say what you can afford to say, because if Kenny Pickett comes out against what Myles said, see you, dude, pack your bags.
Like, right now, I think Myles is the only person who's kind of looked at in the locker room as like, he's the main leader on the team, and he doesn't even necessarily. He's not even like, even by his own admission, I think like the best leader on the team. Like he's not some. So I just think that dynamic's interesting too. Like it kind of circles us back to the idea that like until this team has that franchise quarterback, they're always going to sort of be coming up a little bit short, I think, in the leadership category, the leadership idea anyway.
Yeah, no, it's some really good conversation on it, because something that it didn't even register kind of in my mind of like, hey, this is kind of tongue in cheek out of him. I thought I heard it as, all right, this is what everyone says. Maybe not so much the defensive player of the year thing, because that is attainable, for him. But the Super Bowl one was like, yeah, all right, dude, come on, we all know. But dude, hey, on this, you talked about it a little bit ago, the Browns win total did go up on FanDuel to 5.5. So either they're listening to our show or the public is speaking to the books.
I think that just means people are betting the over, and so they're like, all right, we raise this thing, is what it really means. I think I got in when it was like 4.5, so I was ahead of the curve on this. Because I do think they're going to win more than 4.5 games.
I got him at 3.5, so I feel good.
So you got in even earlier than I did. There you go.
I feel good.
But that's I think that total is a little too low. But we'll see. Well, whatever their record is, the Browns are hoping that their new uniform brings them some, at least 3 wins this season, because they're going to wear them for 3 games. Megs, the brown helmet was finally unveiled. And I need to call you out. Last week, you were like 100% with me. We were on the same page. You were like, man,
material change.
Who needs a brown helmet? Like, it's a terrible look, blah, blah. And now you're texting me today saying like, brown helmets are sick. I think there's just a little homerism going on here. That's all.
No. Material change, and we're gonna go side by side here. Material change. These are garbage. These right here, these are garbage. I can't point to them the right way. This looks like you got out of Toys R Us with. I see the Matt Brown.
Is that Baldwin Wallace?
No, that is Pat. That
shots,
is the Pat.
I know, shots fired by me. I'm sorry. That's a bad. That was me.
That was me. Go Blue Streaks. Go Blue Streaks. This is the Padua Bruins, and this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. This is horrible. Looks like it's straight out of Toys R Us. This, on the other hand, this is clean with the brown face mask and the brown stripe down the middle. You know what these would have been perfect with were the Jarvis Landry, Baker Mayfield.
Color rush. Well, basically what this is. It's basically a color rush jersey.
And they're wearing it with
a brown helmet instead of an orange helmet. But I would argue that what made those color rush jerseys work was the orange helmet. Because it was like you had this very vibrant orange color on those jerseys, and it stood out even more because the jersey was brown. And then you had the orange helmet to kind of go with it, and it all popped so well.
Agreed.
Here's what I'll say. Going with the matte
is awesome.
The matte looks better than what I was anticipating.
Yeah.
But I just don't. Who was asking for a brown helmet? That's my biggest question. I just don't know who was asking for. Like when the Browns went back to they got away from those horrid. I always refer to them as like the Victoria's Secret jerseys, because you know how Victoria's Secret always used to make those pants that said like pink on the ass. Then like girls would wear them and then they get mad like, oh, it's like, well, you have words in your butts. What do you want me to say? I don't know what you want me to say. But like I always felt like that's what those jerseys that said like Cleveland across the chest and like Browns in the pants were to me. They're like Victoria's Secret. So as soon as they got rid of those and they went back to like the classic look, people wanted that. People wanted the classic Browns uniforms. People wanted an all white helmet. They got it. To me, it's a clean look. I haven't heard anybody in the last like 5 years asking for a brown helmet. Nobody. I've heard more people ask for like orange jerseys back, like bring back the orange jersey. I haven't heard anybody ask for the brown helmet. I haven't. And I just think all brown, the jokes write themselves. That's what I would say.
Well, the jokes write themselves, but the flip side of it is, all right, nobody was asking for it, but what if it turns out to be pretty sharp? What if it turns out?
What if they lose all 3 of those games?
Like they did with your precious all-white uniforms.
That's
and
not
they
true.
lost their best player.
You know what they did in the with those white uniforms? They beat
Nick Chubb broke his leg. That's
they beat
what my
the San
memory
Francisco
stopped.
49ers in those white uniforms.
Oh my God, PJ Walker, what a time!
Yeah,
a
they
time
won a
to
game
be
with
alive.
PJ Walker in those
That
white
was our
uniforms.
second. That was our second game on the site, by the way. I'll never forget that. But
It was.
but
did they win another game with those?
No, Nick Chubb broke his leg. That's what they did in those.
When did they wear those jerseys last year? I can't remember off the top of my head. Did they wear them in Vegas last year? I think they might have worn them in Vegas.
They did wear them in Vegas last year, yes.
Well, that didn't turn out very well.
Right there. Yeah, right behind me. But yeah, I mean that was the All Browns, you know what I mean? You're saying no one's asked for it, all this stuff. No one asked for the light bulb, but that turned out to be pretty good for everybody. So maybe we strike gold here. And figure out and find a little diamond in the rough, because the full uniform with these actually does look much sharper. I was nervous. I was so nervous all day today because they did the whole Pat McAfee thing. They were doing the whole, we won't even talk about the boat thing because that was like so staged and stupid, but like that, the whole thing was too much. And I'm like, please don't drop these things.
That's the other thing. Like, they did all that. They rented a barge and put like a big giant helmet on it and like took the tarp off and all this stuff just to announce like a brown helmet. Like, this is part of the reason why people get annoyed with, get frustrated with the Browns, because they won 3 games last year, and then it's the Flex Seal. I love using this metaphor. It's the Flex Seal commercial. It's like, hey, 3-14, but all brown helmet that nobody wanted. Here you go. This is how we're going to appease you. Like, I think that's how I just think that's how a lot of people view like the addition of another uniform into the arsenal here. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm tone deaf. Maybe I'm just the old get off my lawn guy now who
kind of sounds like you are.
But normally I'm not like that though. Normally I like different jersey concepts. I loved like what the Chargers unveiled last week.
Well,
uniforms with the helmet, like I still like this stuff. I still get into this stuff. I'm not a curmudgeon, I swear. I didn't need all brown with a brown helmet uniform. I didn't need
it. It also comes on the week where the Buffalo Bills release one of the greatest uniforms I've ever seen. The Chargers go back to their all navies.
You talking about with the red helmets for Buffalo?
Yeah, with the red helmets.
Well, they've been doing the red helmets for a couple years now, but they
the red on the blue, it's just perfect. It's great. And then you got the Chargers doing perfect jerseys, and it's like, oh man, they had this plan. Like, maybe if they would have just dropped it, like, hey, this is cool add-on, like, fine. But because you got 2 10 out of 10 scores right before you drop a 6 out of 10, it looks so much worse. But I don't know. Maybe I think what it is, Spence, is I was prepared for this monstrosity is what I was prepared for.
No disrespect to Padua, but yeah.
And it wasn't quite that bad. So I guess maybe that's the reason why I was on top of the world after seeing it.
Yeah, also the jokes write themselves when your sponsor for said jersey change is Dude Wipes. But
Dude Wipes.
That's just me. I don't know.
Dude Wipes.
But anyway, I'm not gonna let you live it down, man. You flip flopped on me. I
didn't flip flop on you.
You were all about Brown being a stupid uniform or a stupid helmet concept, and then you're
change. You're
signing up to buy a Shedeur Sanders all brown.
No,
helmet.
material change. I'll die on that hill.
That's gonna do it. Day 1 of training camp in the books. We'll recap day 2 tomorrow, and of course throughout camp we'll be recapping it with you. So again, find us si.com/NFL/Browns. We got all our written stuff over there. I have a recap from day 1 over there, all the stuff you missed, some other stuff just based off of quotes and things that people said, and hit that subscribe button here at the YouTube channel, because if you like this content, there's going to be plenty more of it. Megs and I will be with you every step of the way throughout training camp, throughout the regular season, and maybe beyond if there's a playoff appearance in this team's future, but probably not. Thank you for watching, as always. And for Anthony Moeglin, I'm Spencer German. Keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns with the Cleveland Browns on SI.